Now, let's talk about some real examples of price ceilings. First one we're going to talk about is rent control, and in particular New York City. New York City has a myriad of laws that restrict the ability of landlords from raising rents. The restrictions fall into two categories: rent control and rent stabilization. Rent-controlled apartments in New York City are governed by price controls imposed in World War II. Rents are very low and are set to cover the cost of building maintenance and improvements. One interesting caveat is that rent-controlled apartments convert to rent-stabilized when they become vacant. Therefore, the vacancy rate is always 0%. Since rents are so low, tenants designate in their will who inherits the apartment to ensure a heir will enjoy the benefits of the low rents. I've got some optional readings in the lecture. You could read those and see they've got some great stories about it. Also, Doonesbury ran a series of stories about a series of cartoons about the difficulty of finding a rent-controlled apartment. Rent-stabilized apartments are governed by a series of laws passed by the New York City Council. Rents are low, and a government board determines the maximum amount by which landlords may increase rents each year. Rent stabilization often prevents rents from rising to the equilibrium price. Therefore, the quantity demanded is greater than the quantity supplied, therefore the quantity demanded is higher and the quantity supplied is lower than they would be at equilibrium. The result is a shortage of apartments. This shortage means that people have a harder time finding low rent stabilized apartments than high rent unregulated apartments. The data confirms this. The vacancy rate, this was for 2008, in New York City was 4.63%. For rent stabilized, it was less than half that, 2.19%. Much harder to find a rent stabilized apartment to use. Another example of price control or price ceiling are price controls on health care. Examples are the United States or Canada, the Canadian health system, and also the VA or Veterans Hospital in the United States. Rates for the single-payer health care system in Canada are set by the national government at prices that are below the rates charged in the private market sector in the United States. Similarly, the U.S. government sets rates at VA hospitals in the U.S. that are below rates charged in the private sector. Supply and demand predicts that the quantity supplied will be less than the quantity demanded when you set prices below the equilibrium price. One signal that quantity demand is greater than the quantity supplied for a hospital is a long wait time for patients. Long wait time. How long do you have to wait to see your doctor? As predicted, waiting times in Canada in the VA hospitals are long. I've got some links to that from the lectures, and we heard recently news about VA, about how the VA was actually keeping two separate lists. One, they reported to the officials to get bonuses that showed short waiting times, and the real waiting list showed much longer waiting times, up to a year and a half, with patients dying while on the waiting list before they could see their doctor.